All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Popovich. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I work as the Assistant Director of Leadership Education at the University of Pittsburgh, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this Hasselbein Global Academy virtual session entitled Elevating Mental Fitness for Inclusive Leadership. Please note that this session is being recorded. Our presenter for this session is Dr. Denice Hinden. Dr. Hinden is on a mission to ignite passion and a sense of opportunity for nonprofit and association leaders and their workplaces. With over 2,500 hours of leadership coaching experience and 20 plus years of experience in engaging and meeting, facilitation, and team building needs, Dr. Hinden raises leader awareness about attitudes, behaviors, and mental fitness that inspire high performance, meaningful results, and more joy at work. Her books include Taking Leadership to the Next Level and the Nonprofit Organizational Culture Guide. We are especially pleased to welcome Dr. Hinden as an alum of the University of Pittsburgh. She earned a BA in Urban Studies at Pitt and MS in Human Services from Nova Southeastern University and a PhD in Public Administration from Florida International University. Thank you, Dr. Hinden, so much for being with us here today. Let's go ahead and get started.
Sarah, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And to all of you, thank you so much for your interest in this session. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Denice Hinden. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm thrilled to learn with you today. And if you can put your camera on so I can see your beautiful faces, I would love to do that. And if you can't, I understand, but I'm just really, really excited to be here. And we have a quick 45 minutes, so I'm going to get started right away. It's so nice to meet all of you. Let me just give you a little roadmap for our time together. We're in this session, we're going to explore a little bit how our neurochemistry influences leadership and we-oriented organizational cultures. I'm going to introduce you to something called a PQ rep and explain its impact on positive, inclusive leadership mindsets and actually teach you how to do it. And I also hope that you leave this session with a couple of new ideas for positively influencing a team or organizational culture with inclusive leadership. You know, whether it's a student team that you're on or a job team where you're working, there's a lot of ways that you can begin to develop your skills as an inclusive leader right now. So I want to let me actually just explain to you what we're going to do today before I get into my presentation, just to give you a sense of the agenda. So first, I'm going to give you a little context, some definitions and context about inclusive leadership and we-oriented organizational cultures, and talk a little bit about this thing called mental fitness. Then I'm going to introduce you to the mental fitness operating framework that was created by Stanford lecturer, Coach Shirzad Chamine. And then we'll actually practice doing a PQ rep. I'll explain what it is, and we'll take a couple of minutes and do one together. There will be a little bit of time for Q&A. So if you have questions, please make note of them, and then we'll have time to get your perspective. And throughout the conversation, I'm going to invite you to put your thoughts in the chat. So I really want to make this interactive and to hear from you. And then we'll wrap up with a few strategies that you can use immediately to strengthen and practice your inclusive leadership. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to be drawing on three frameworks that I have found incredibly invaluable the last 13 or so years of my professional practice and personal life. One of them is called Energy Leadership, and it was created by Bruce Snyder, and his book is called Energy Leadership, Transforming Your Life and Your Work from the Core. And what Bruce Schneider talks about, introduces in his work, is the idea that our beliefs control our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. And that we really have two types of energy that inside of us that influence our beliefs. One is an anabolic energy that's very positive, it's constructive, it's expanding, and it's fueling for us. And we also have catabolic energy within inside of us, and it's draining and contracting, and it pushes, it's exhausting, it pushes down on us. So building on this idea that we have these different kinds of energies within us, Judith Glaser, in her work called Conversational Intelligence, she explains that this negative and positive energy really influences how we build trust, how we build, how negative energy puts us in a protective space and a controlling space where we're resistant, we're skeptical. However, the more transparent and open we become in the way that we listen and in the way that we communicate, Judith's work explains that we actually can move into a we space and build partnerships where there is high trust. And so conversational intelligence is all about how we use our words to impact our energy to build trust. And then finally, in his book, Positive Intelligence, Shirzad Chamine gives us an operating system and a set of really powerful tools to actually increase our mental fitness, which is our capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. So it's really all about our capability. Mental fitness is our capability to tap into our anabolic energy and to use the way that we're communicating to build trust. And when we're doing that, we're actually also building our mental fitness. At the end, I'll also be giving you, well, after the summit today, Sarah will be sharing a handout that I've prepared with you that summarizes the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you at the end of the session, and also gives you some links to some really helpful tools. I have some tools that I think that you'll find really helpful. So let me give you a little more context, and I want to start with a quick story about my transformational leadership experience. And what I want to invite you to do as I'm telling this story, see if you can make any connections to it in your own experience. So as a college student, when I was at Pitt and I was pursuing an internship, I was competing to prevent another student from getting the opportunity I wanted. The wise executive director of the organization where I wanted to work said, "There is enough room for both of you." As a young leader, I wrote a memo in one of my first jobs mandating participation in a training session. A wise colleague popped in my office and said, "You don't catch bees with vinegar." And on still another occasion, as a young leader, I demanded that a person I supervised, the first person that I ever supervised, to do something. I demanded that they do something when they said no, they didn't want to. My wise supervisor pulled me aside and said, "Effective leaders do not tell, they ask." So I think you're starting to see a theme here, that I was much more of a command and control and directive leader early on in my career. But because of frameworks like energy leadership and conversational intelligence, and now positive intelligence, I consider myself a much more effective, inclusive, and we-oriented leader. And it has transformed my life as well as the life of the organizations and the people that I work with. It's so much more enjoyable. It really makes what I do every day so much more fun. So what's a leader? A leader is someone who inspires, I think, a leader is someone who inspires themselves and others into effective action to achieve shared goals. And I think that this idea that we have to take care of ourselves, inspire ourselves as leaders, as well as others, is a key to evolving thriving organizational cultures where diversity, equity, and inclusion are dominant. We have to work on ourselves first so that we can help others. So what's an inclusive leader? These are leaders who are dedicated to other people's thriving. They nurture purpose in others. They are comfortable, their own mental fitness, the mental fitness of inclusive leaders allows them to encourage other people to speak their truth. They are passionate about challenging obstacles. In other words, when there is an obstacle, their whole focus is on how can we solve it. Thank you. I was going to ask if you could put yourself on mute. Thank you so much. Inclusive leaders are continuously learning. They take a strong stand against bias by first actually understanding, what bias is, what their bias is. For example, I was working with a leader yesterday who was telling me that, they're really focused on achieving goals and they really don't take very much time to get to really know the people on their team because they come at the work from an assumption that if you're in a leadership position, you're already capable of doing what you need to do. And that's just not true. We are all imperfect and we all need help. So bias, are things that we believe in that, got taught to us in some way, and we carry them out in the way we do things, but they're not actually, may not be helpful to other people. And inclusive leaders also, they seek feedback to work on themselves. They're not afraid to get perspective on how am I doing and what can I do better? And in we-oriented organizational cultures, there's transparency at all levels. There's no fear about sharing information. There's a safety in inviting people to ask questions and express their concerns, because their concerns, when we know them, are an opportunity for making things better. There's safety for all identities to thrive, no matter what your background is, no matter what your experience is. You feel comfortable bringing all of that to the table in a we-oriented organizational culture. These are also cultures that invite people in to contribute. They look for ways to create and invite participation. They ask what people think, and not only do they ask what people think in these cultures, but they value the response. And we know they value the response because they use it and they see it. We see the responses become active in the way the organization is doing their work. And these we-oriented cultures, they are intentional about connecting teams and departments. They break down silos. They work across organizations. So why is mental fitness so important in the space of being an inclusive leader and building we-oriented cultures? Because inclusive leadership and building we-oriented organizational cultures is actually hard work. And it's hard work because it's not natural to us. It kind of goes against the grain of the way our brains work. Our brains are we're hardwired, for command and control. And we're also wired for inclusion, but we have to be intentional about it. We have to create it. So let me just stop here because I've been talking a lot. Let me just stop here and see, just invite you to put into the chat just something that's crossing your mind about like your experience in your life so far, as you know, as a student, as a working, belonging to a club or a faith-based, community. What's been your experience with around inclusive leadership or we-oriented cultures? Anything that's on your mind, I'd love to just see what you're thinking about these ideas. So just go ahead and pop that into the chat. And if this is just the first time you're hearing about this, and you've never really observed this idea of inclusive leadership or we-oriented cultures before, I'd love to know that too. So I'll give you a minute and I'm going to keep going on with my presentation, but feel free. Great, Albert, thank you. Beautiful, exactly. This is what you're sharing, this idea that power is not scarce and everyone has it and can take part in it, crosses both inclusive leadership and we-oriented cultures. Thank you so much for sharing that and noticing that about power. Great. So again, please feel free to write anything that's on your mind. Let me tell you a little bit about mental fitness and what this is. So mental fitness is an operating system for strengthening 3 core mental muscles to thrive in challenging times as an inclusive leader. Our mental fitness, again, is our capacity to respond to life's challenges in a positive rather than a negative mindset. Like going to a gym to build our arm muscles or our leg muscles or our abdominal muscles, mental fitness is about building our brain muscle to serve us as well as it possibly can. And what it impacts is our ability to achieve our peak performance, which is again, it's like a lifelong pursuit. Always, inclusive leaders are always looking to be better in how they're doing their work. It also impacts our peace of mind and wellness. And being an inclusive leader and fostering we-oriented cultures, because it takes a lot of work, the more calm and well we feel, the better we are at doing it. Whoops, excuse me. And at a cornerstone of inclusive leadership and we-oriented cultures is healthy relationships. And the more that we build our capacity to do that, even to be able to have challenging conversations, to get to good results from those conversations, the more that we do that, the more we build our mental fitness, the more capability we have for those healthy relationships. Let me see, there's a couple more. So Genia, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, the best leaders are able to see everyone's strengths and use everyone's unique abilities to collectively achieve a goal. Absolutely, and that's what we mean by achieving peak performance, and actually building on everyone's strengths in a confident way, that because you feel a peace of mind and wellness. And you know that the more you know someone, the better you can tap into their abilities. Yeah, Joshua, absolutely. The best leaders lead from behind at times. They don't actually need to be in front. You know, sometimes we think that leaders are the people that need to be in front, but often they are people who are able to make a good judgment and say, you know what, I need to actually be behind this rather than in front of this, and let other people shine. And that's really a sign of an inclusive leader. So thank you. Yeah, Meryl, thank you. The best leaders are humble and they don't get defensive. Gia, absolutely. You know, it's very common in organizational life to say, let's collaborate. The truth is that collaborating in ways that make everybody feel really good and productive in it is really hard, because we would prefer not to collaborate. The way that our brains are hardwired, we prefer to very often, work individually, or we feel like we have the right answers and we just want to get our point of view across. That's what we're hardwired for. In a minute, I'll say more about this, but the trust center in our brain, the sage wisdom center in our brain loves to collaborate and loves to partner, but we have to be intentional about creating our comfort with that. And positive intelligence is a great tool to help us with that. So positive intelligence has been, is a powerful operating system that's built from research in performance science, positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, and research done by original research done by the positive intelligence team. And pulling all of this research together, that we've learned that we're actively sabotaging the vital dimensions of inclusive and transformational leadership every day. It's inherent in all of us. Like we naturally sabotage ourselves, and positive intelligence is designed to help us not do that and to take advantage of our strengths. So the research that was done, includes results from hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. It includes Stanford students, world-class athletes participated in this research, 500,000 participants from 50 countries. And so what I really want you to know here is that this work is global. It's not just a US or North American construct, it's global in nature. And then this youth professional organization, Families and Forums, it's a professional association for professional development, also participated in this research as well. And so, and all of the research is summarized in Shirzad Shamin's best-selling book, Positive Intelligence, that has been translated into 20 languages, again, because of the global application of the work. So what's really sort of invaluable about this research is that it was done through factor analysis. And if you're not familiar with the statistical tool, it discovers the root cause of things, and it creates the opportunity for radical simplification. So sort of let me give you an example that comes from the world of art. We would just, if we did a factor analysis on colors, what we would discover is that the root of thousands of colors are only 3. And those three are red, red, blue, and whoops, I don't know how I got that green in there. It's red, blue, and yellow. Apologize for that mistake. I will correct that before the slides go out to everybody. But at the root of it is red, blue, and yellow. And from those three colors, we can create a color palette of thousands of colors. And so the factor analysis research that was done on positive intelligence resulted in identifying 3 core muscles that are at the root of mental fitness. One is called the saboteur interceptor. And this is our ability, our own ability to notice our inner critic that fuels our own negative mindsets. And where do these negative mindsets come from? Well, they come from our frustration, like when we're feeling frustrated, our anger, if we feel ashamed of something, about something, if we feel guilty, if we're not feeling good enough about something. Those are characteristics, of our saboteurs. And the more that we're able to notice those saboteurs in us, the more capable we are of intercepting them and shifting them. The second part of that the factor analysis discovered is our sage brain, which is different than our saboteur brain. Our ability to power up our sage, to be in command of it, is the second muscle that we want to strengthen. It gives us the opportunity to be at choice in the way that we're showing up in our leadership and in our behavior on teams and in the way that we're living our life. And the third muscle is this thing called self-command, which is growing our ability to naturally improve our ability to be in sage, to intercept our saboteurs, and to be in sage. I'm not sure, how many of you might identify with maybe you're familiar with The Mandalorian, and so you're familiar with the analogy of Jedi training, and you know who Darth Vader was. Think about positive intelligence being like Jedi mind training, where there's a war raging between our inner Jedi, our strengths, and our inner Darth Vaders. So our saboteurs are our Darth Vaders, and our Jedi is our sage. That's our true inner self. And what positive intelligence does is actually help us use that every day in the way that we live. It's been very transformational for me, and I've been practicing it for many, many years. And the difference is really impactful. So the research has identified just 10 saboteurs. They are the judge, the controller, the stickler, the pleaser, the victim, the hypervigilant, the hyperrational. I'm going to tell you where to find more information about them before we end today. These 10 saboteurs sabotage our effectiveness on our performance, our wellness, and our relationships. And every human has them because every human brain is the same. These saboteurs live in our survival brain. They're part of our left brain. They live in our brainstem, where our amygdala is. They're part of our limbic system, where our memories are. And they're entirely different than our sage powers, which live in parts of our right brain and are prefrontal cortex, where our creativity, that's the front part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, where our creativity lies, and they're part of our empathy circuitry in our brain, our empathy, our ability to have feelings and connect with other people. And these 5 sage powers are empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. Our saboteurs motivate us through negative emotions. They motivate us through fear, stress, anger, guilt, shame, insecurity, not feeling enough, and through stress, which is one of the #1 motivators of our saboteurs, as opposed to our sage, which is motivated by calmness, by connection, by working with others, by being curious. And so what we want to do by focusing on our purpose, it's another piece of the sage, and by taking action with others. So we can never get rid of our saboteurs. It's not a matter of getting rid of them. They are a part of our brain, the way that we function. It's about increasing our capability to intercept them, be aware of them, and then shift through the tools of inclusive leadership and that we orientation to engage with our sage powers. So when we are connected to our sage brain, we're drawing on the ease and flow, making things simple and comfortable, and more helpful and more collaborative. When we're drawing on our sage brain, the neurotransmitter oxytocin gets released in our brain. It's sometimes called the love hormone because it fuels our inspiration and our energy to connect with others and solve problems together. In Paul Zach's article in the Harvard Business Review in February 2017, he does a really great analysis of the neuroscience of trust. And so that might be a great article for you to take a look at, to sort of learn more about this idea of how oxytocin, when we are feeling good, helps us be even more productive. It's part of our sage powers. So what is this thing that I've been mentioning to you is called a PQ rep. Well, this is a practical transformational tool for expanding our mental fitness, and that can help us be more inclusive in our approach and have a more we orientation. It's a physical activity that we do. It's a little like a mini meditation for a minute or two. You can do it frequently. The more frequently that you do it, the more you build the gray matter in your brain that increases your access to your sage powers. And so what I want to invite you to do is to do a PQ rep with me. We're going to just take a minute to do this. If you feel more comfortable taking yourself off video and closing your eyes, that's great. You can just listen to my voice while you're doing it. What the PQ rep is going to do is it's going to put you in touch with your senses that are right brain focused. It's going to take us out of the being analytical, which is more left brain driven. And what we understand about the sage brain is that the more we build up our ability to, the more we do PQ reps, we build up our ability to access our sage brain. So you can do these before meetings, before a test, before you have to speak in public, before you do a presentation. If you've had a really hard day and you're really feeling a lot of stress, you can do them at the end of the day. You can do them before you go to bed. You can do them before you wake up in the morning. And the idea is that the more you do them, the more you charge up your sage brain. So here we go. If you'd like to, take yourself off video and close your eyes when you are ready. And what we're going to do is a PQ rep with a sense of touch. So what I want to invite you to do is rub 2 fingertips. So sit up straight with your head straight. Now you're going to put all your focus into the touch of your fingers. You're going to rub 2 fingertips together with such attention that you can feel the ridges on both fingers. And just focus on the feeling of those ridges and the temperature of your fingers. Just put all your attention there. And if your mind is wandering, don't worry, just bring it back to putting the attention into feeling the ridges of your fingers and the heat or coolness of your hand. Now what I want to invite you to do is rub all the fingertips of one hand gently against the fingertips and palm of the other hand, and just notice all the sensations that you can feel in your fingertips and your hand. Feel the ridges in your palm, feel the heat or coolness of your hand. You might touch the back of your hand, feel your knuckles, feel your nails. Just focus on that. Notice all the sensations. Now put your right hand on your stomach and notice the gentle rising and falling of your stomach with each breath. Just breathe a few times into naturally and just notice the breath going in your nostrils and the temperature coming out of your nostrils and the rise and fall of your stomach. And when you're ready, take your time, open your eyes, turn your video back on. That is a PQ rep. And I'd love for you to put in the chat something that you noticed or observed from taking that pause and having that little PQ rep experience. Anybody notice anything? I know it can feel a little awkward or a little strange to do that, but the more you do that, and in different ways, like you can listen to music really intentionally for a minute or two. That would be an audible PQ rep. You can tense your body for a minute or two, and that could be another way of doing a PQ rep. I like to do them in the shower in the morning, or when I'm putting the water in my dog's water bowl. I watch the bubbles flow from the sink, the spigot into the water bowl. It's focusing on something that your senses for just a minute or two that changes the dynamic of how you're thinking or feeling. Meryl, so it helped you feel a little more calm and focused. Yes, that's what we want it to do. Sarah, relaxing like a luxury. Yes, and the more that we do those, again, the more you do it, that calming, Aiden, thank you so much. That calming sense, it centers our thoughts. The more we do that, it makes it possible for us to walk into challenging situations and feel prepared to think more creatively and more productively and more collaboratively. So thank you for trying that with me. You know, we're down to our last 5 minutes here. So let me just wrap up, and then I want to create a little space for taking a few of your questions and talking about a couple strategies here. So the simplicity of the PQ operating system is that if you're feeling a negative emotion, stop, because you're in the saboteur mode, and do some PQ reps. The minute you do those PQ reps, you're activating your sage. And when you activate your sage, what we assume is that every problem can be converted into a gift and opportunity. And that's what inclusive leaders operating in we-oriented cultures are doing. They're looking for the gifts and opportunities in every challenge so that everyone in those environments feels inclusive and like included and as if they belong. And we generate these gifts by using the sage powers of empathy, curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action that many of you said you noticed by doing that PQ rep. So I think maybe we have time for one or two questions. So does anybody have a question? And please just take yourself off, Albert.
Hi, Denise.
Hi.
I'm a Pitt alum, also class of 2020, as well as a Hasselbein Fellow from 2017.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a question. A lot of the mental fitness focuses on shifting from negativity to positivity. Where does the line draw? Where's the line for toxic positivity?
Yeah, it's such a great question. You know, our negative perspective is really can be very, very helpful to us. So this is about reality, not toxic positivity. Our negative emotions are part of our warning system for us. It's healthy to be skeptical. It's healthy. Think about it like putting your hand on a hot stove. If you put your hand on the hot stove, you touch that hot stove and you take it off quickly, the hot stove has warned you that, hey, there's heat here, there's fire here. It gives you a moment to take stock of the situation, the reality of the situation. The challenge is that if we leave our hand on that hot burner for too long, what happens? We can seriously injure ourselves. And so what the positive intelligence framework is all about is acknowledge the negative experience that you're having, the challenge that you're having, acknowledge it, honor it. That's why empathy is so important. We don't want to discount the negative experience that we're having. We want to acknowledge it. And then we want to say, how can I move from that into a place where I can use my strengths, my sage, to shift myself to a better way to think about things, as well as the circumstances and the others that I'm working with. Because if we try to solve problems from a negative space, we don't actually bring our best thinking to those problems. We're much better solving problems when we're coming from a sage place. So thank you for that really great question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let me just give you 3 really quick things, because I know I have to end. Oh my goodness. Okay, your 3 sage powers that you can get access to right away. Empathy. This idea of listening to connect with a colleague or two or a few. Take turns sharing concerns and seeking each other's thoughts with discernment instead of negative judgment. And discernment is saying, okay, we have a problem here, but we don't have to blame each other for what's going on. Let's figure out what the obstacle is and how we can work through it together. That's discernment. Be curious. Before you attempt to solve a problem, brainstorm as many questions as you can about the situation And even better, brainstorm that with a few people. Then pick the questions that are the most important to seek out the answers to, and seek out diverse points of view to get those answers before you, so that you're more open to new ideas. And finally, and one of my favorites, when you're in a conversation and there's a little conflict, assume that the other person is 10% right, no matter what, even if you disagree with them. And that just shifting your thinking to the fact that they could be 10% right automatically puts you into a sage perspective. It has been such a joy being with you today. Thank you so much for your time and your questions. In the resources, in the handout that I'm going to be, that I'm sharing with you, you will be able to take a complimentary Positive Intelligence Saboteur Assessment, or PQ assessment, to learn more about your own saboteurs. You can visit my website and take the complimentary leadership assessment I have on my website. And I also have a link to a Psychology Today article that I wrote on transforming organizational culture from a we perspective. Anyway, I wish all of you a great rest of the summit and good luck in your journey to inclusive leadership and creating we-oriented cultures.
Well, Dr. Hinden, thank you so much for being with us here today. We really appreciate your expertise and just the introduction or reintroduction to like all of these concepts, I think, that are so helpful for, you know, anybody at any stage of their leadership journey. So thank you so much for bringing all of this great information to us. I just want to thank all the participants as well for your awesome participation, and just remind you that you will get a survey link at the end of the summit today. So please make sure that you fill that out to provide your feedback. At this point, we encourage you to transition to your next session. You can find the Zoom link for the 1 p.m. session in your summit schedule. And thank you again, Dr. Hinden, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.